Hi, how are you doing? We started to read Isaiah, and I want to go over chapter 6, the call of Isaiah. I think this is a beautiful passage that teaches us how prophets were called. And it was not about an individual choosing to be a prophet, rather, it was about God calling an individual to be his prophet. So, if you open your Bible and go to chapter 6, and we are going to read from verse 1 to verse 8. And I am going to kind of explain a little bit briefly about some elements and themes that are in the story. So, in the year that King Uzziah died, probably 742 BCE, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lofty, and the hem of his robe filled the temple. So here we are learning two things. One, that the divine presence, God, appears to Isaiah, and the language on a throne, high and lofty, tells us that it's God and it's the divine presence. Now, it happened in the temple of Jerusalem, the holy city. Now, verse 2, seraphs were in attendance about him. You see, they are serving God. Each had 6 wings, with two they covered their faces, and with two they covered their feet, and with two they flew. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The language holy, 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 3 times holy, reminds us of Mass. If you go to the Catholic Mass or Christian Mass, you see that that 3 holies are repeated. And by the way, this is mentioned only in Isaiah in this chapter. Now, the pivots, if you look, you see a little K letter of the alphabet, and then if you see in the on the down, if you look down, you are going to see the meaning of the Hebrew uncertain. That means they don't know exactly what it means in Hebrew, okay? So the pivots on the thresholds shook at the voice of those who called, and the house filled with smoke. And so shook at the voices of those who called. The word shook also is telling us that God is being manifested, that Isaiah is seeing the Lord, he's seeing the divine presence or experiencing the presence of God. And the house filled with smoke. The word smoke is also another language that is used when God appears to humans, or when the room, in this case the temple, is filled with the divine presence. Now, it also reminds us of Moses on Mount Sinai, the theophany. Theos means God, uh, um, and then God is becoming manifested. He himself is showing to Isaiah, and I said, "Oh, is me." Oh, is me. So he's seeing himself that he's not worthy of having this wonderful experience. I am lost. So he is, again, not worthy to see or to hear God. For I am a man of unclean lips. So unclean lips. Why does he say that I am a man of unclean lips? Because we know a prophet is going to speak on God's behalf. A prophet is going to use his mouth to do his ministry. Now, and I live among a people of unclean lips. No? All his neighbors are sinners, unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. He calls God the King. Then one of the seraphs came to me, holding a live coal that had been taken from the altar with a pair of tongs. So again, he's in the temple close to the altar. The seraph in Hebrew is he. If you see the little letter L in my Bible, probably your Bible too, touch my mouth with it, with that tongue, and and said, now that this has touched your lips, your guilt has departed and your sin is blotted out. Wow. I would say it's a moment of a miracle because now from being his lips are pure and clean. In other words, he's ready to proclaim God's message. He's ready to be a prophet. So the seraph burns away his sin and also his guilt by touching his lips with a burning coal. Um, and that burning coal is taken from the altar, from this holy place. And so he was a sinner and he recognizes that. But because God chooses Isaiah to be his prophet, he also makes his lips pure and clean. Because to speak on God's behalf, to speak or prophesy God's message, a prophet must have clean lips. I think this is a beautiful story that Isaiah tells us humbly that yes, he was a sinner and God chose him to be his prophet. And then in verse 8, then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, so he has this honor, privilege to hear God's voice. God is there in the temple. Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? This is happening in the 8th century, and God is asking, whom shall I send? So the language send reminds us of the call of Samuel in 1 Samuel chapter 3, 1 through 14. In the same way, very similar, the language, whom shall I send? And the way how Isaiah responds, here I am, send me, is also very similar to what Samuel said when he was called. Now, and God said, or he said, go and say to these people. This is the beginning of Isaiah's ministry as a prophet. And now, just to give a little historical background, this is happening in the 8th century and just before the exile. And yes, you are going to see that Isaiah is in Judah, in the southern kingdom, in Jerusalem, in the temple. And look, in verse 11, so then you can understand what is going on. Then I said, how long, O Lord? And he said, until cities lie waste without inhabitants. So it's alluding or echoing to what is going to happen with the city of Jerusalem and cities around Jerusalem and houses without people, because the Jews are going to be sent into exile. Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. The temple is going to be destroyed until the Lord, look, and the land is utterly desolate. Yeah, that's going to happen. Until the Lord sends everyone far away. Where is that far away? That far away is Babylonia. and vast is the emptiness in the midst of the land. And so keep this call in mind when we get to the other prophets. Okay, so have a wonderful day.